Okay, so today we're going to cover pages 35 through 47 in Chronicle of a Death Foretold. I'm going to stop as we go through. I'm going to ask you some questions about what's happening here. So, Angela's going to be getting married to Bayardo. How does she feel about this? Not so good, right? Um, she tries to talk to her mother about it, about this inconvenience of a lack of love, but her mother doesn't seem to care what she thinks. She says love can be learned too. So this is just demonstrating that oppression of women that we have, which is sort of like the opposite of the machismo, right? Bayardo got what he wanted. He said, I'm going to marry that girl, and he's going to marry that girl. He gave the parents enough money. He has enough power. He could do whatever he wants. And Angela has to follow along because that's what her parents want her to do. So she is engaged now. She is not in love with him. And her mom is just telling her, listen, you're going to learn how to love him. You're going to be all right. So their engagement lasted only 4 months, which is pretty short. And didn't last less than that for only one reason, and that is that Pura Vicario was still doing the family mourning over the death of the relative, and so she wouldn't let it be any earlier than that, but someone was pushing for it to be earlier. Who is pushing the wedding to be earlier than 4 months? Who would like that? So then Angela and Bayardo, they're talking, and we have this little anecdote in the story here about Bayardo and the widower Zeus. And first what Bayardo does is talks to Angela, and he's like, so, hey, listen, like, which house do you want to live in? What's your favorite house here? Where would you like to go? And she's like, well, I mean, widower Zeus's house is really nice. And it's described here. It said it's on this windswept hill. The terrace, you can see the limitless paradise of the marshes covered with purple anemones. On clear summer days, you can make out the horizon of the Caribbean. There's tourist ships from Cartagena. It's just a beautiful house, right? And it belongs to this man who's a widow, which means his wife has passed away. And so Bayardo, in true machismo fashion, goes to the widower at a bar and offers him 5,000 pesos, right? First he says, I'll give you 5,000 pesos for your house. And the widower's like, yeah, so like the house isn't for sale, right? Because he loves the house, because he's lived there for 30 years with his wife who just died. And they made all these memories there. And it's dear to his heart. It's very sentimental. And Bayardo's like, oh, come on. 5,000, you won't take 5,000? How about 10,000 pesos? You take 10,000 pesos. And Zeus is sort of crying, and he's like, no, this is my house. I'm not selling it. And Bayardo says, you know what? Hold on. You just stay right here. I'll be right back. Tell me what happens when he comes back. All right. While they are engaged and Bayardo gets this house, he takes Angela to go see it. And Angela's not allowed to go on a date alone with this man until they are married, which is interesting and kind of ironic because the whole problem here is that her honor has already been smudged, and they're trying to really, really hard to maintain her honor this whole time, right? So when she goes on a date to go see this house, who goes with her? All right. Well, she's thinking about getting married. She knows that she's not a virgin. She knows that this is going to be a problem and that she needs to tell someone because she can't just get married not a virgin because they're going to know. And here's how they're going to know. And I'm not sure if this makes a lot of sense to you, but this is something that is really popular in many other cultures. So this is going to be a little personal for a second, okay? So in this culture, when someone gets married, the woman is supposed to be a virgin. If the woman is a virgin, on their wedding night, when they consummate the marriage, the woman would bleed a little bit on their sheet. The sheet would be hung out the window the next day, and it's called a stain of honor, meaning sort of like the husband saying, she's mine. No one else had her but me. She is my wife. This is my person now, right? Angela knows that's not going to happen. She knows she's not a virgin, and so that is just simply not going to happen. And so she has to avoid this, and she doesn't know what to do. So she's decided that, one, she's praying to God to give her the strength to kill herself. Well, that doesn't work. So then she talks to some friends of hers, two friends, only two people that she tells about this situation. And when she tells these two people she's not a virgin, they're like, oh, listen, don't do anything crazy. Don't tell your mom. Because she actually says, so when she was thinking about she was going to kill herself, she says she had resolved to tell her mother the truth as to free herself from that martyrdom. If she told her mom was probably going to hurt her severely, right? Anyways, friends are like, no, don't tell your mom. Listen, lots of people lose their virginity in accidents when they're younger. We're going to help you gain your lost possession. You were supposed to make an annotation with that. You're supposed to make sure you knew what the word fiend is. Lost possession is a metaphor. What is it a metaphor for? What are these girls going to help her do? All right. Next, we have Beardo San Roman. It says he I'm on page 38. He must have got married with the illusion of buying happiness with the huge weight of his power and fortune. The more plans for the festival grew, the more delirious his ideas occurred to him to make it even larger. So he's trying to make this wedding the biggest event that has ever happened, and it becomes the biggest event that ever happened. Not only is he buying all of this stuff, but he's like, I'd really like to hold off one more day. Why does he want to hold off one more day? How does Angela feel about him wanting to hold off one more day? She does not want to hold off one more day. What is her reasoning for that? All right. Now we're on page 39 and everyone's getting set up for the wedding. This whole town is being rebuilt simply for this wedding. Now, they're painting things, they're knocking down fences, they're building dance floors, right? There's so many gifts coming in for this wedding that they have to go to it says, if you're looking on 39, forgotten site of the first electrical power plant in order to display the most valuable among them, and the rest were immediately taken to the former home of widower Zeus, which had already been prepared to receive the newlyweds. So gifts, there's so many gifts, they can't put them all in one place. The gifts are all over. What does the groom receive? Well, the groom, Bayardo, his gift for this wedding, one of the gifts, is a convertible with his name engraved in Gothic letters under the manufacturer's seal. And Angela receives a gift also, a special gift that's just for her. What is that? As we continue, we learn a little bit more about the Vicario family, right? So they're not rich, they're medium, right? Dad used to have he was in the military. Let's see. No, he was not in the military. He worked with gold. The dad worked with gold at one point in time, but Dad lost his sight. And when Dad lost his sight, he could no longer do that. He could no longer work. So the boys, the twins, Pedro and Pablo Vicario, they take over doing this. They learn the slaughterer's trade. What is a slaughterer? Somebody who kills. They kill pigs. So they have a pig farm, a pigsty in their backyard. They raise pigs, they slaughter them, they sell them, right? It's a respectable trade. Kind of dirty though, right? We've got a bunch of pigs in the backyard and we're going to hold the wedding here. So also they have to take a lot of time to clean that up. How is it ironic that they are pig slaughterers? What do you think of that? All right. I want to carry on. I want to point out just a couple of things. So this wedding is huge. Like I said, they're like rebuilding the town because of it. They talk more about that on page 40, about all the things that they're doing to the house. But we have a couple mentions of a motif here, this tree motif, right? So in the front yard of the Vicario house, we have fruit trees. Fruit trees, if you want to look that up, you can think of like the knowledge of good and evil. Think of Adam and Eve, right? And the tree of knowledge. And it's just a little bit ironic. They have this in their front yard, but they don't know what's going on. The other thing that they have is tamarind trees there. And if we look up what tamarind trees symbolize, it's faithfulness and forbearance, right? Faithfulness and ability to deal with difficult persons. So that's interesting. Faithfulness. So was Angela faithful to her family, to her code of honor, to what women are supposed to be? And is she going to have to deal with something for a long time? Probably. So we have this motif of the tree coming and going, tree knowledge in general, tamarind trees, this idea of faithfulness. Now we have a little bit more on page 41, and that is Angela getting ready for this wedding. Angela has some nerve, and our narrator's mom is kind of impressed with her because she still wears these orange blossoms and her veil, right? These are symbols of purity. Angela's not pure. These are symbols of purity. Angela is wearing them because she's got to carry this out until the very last moment. She's just trying to make things look good. What happened on the wedding morning though? Like, she's got all of her stuff out. She's got her dress, the veil, everything. Something happened where she wasn't going to put the dress on. What happened? Beata shows up and the wedding is going to happen. And it's interesting. We look on page 41. It says, from the moment he finally appeared in frock, coat, and top hat until he fled the dance with his creature of torment, he was the perfect image of a happy bridegroom. So how does Beata feel on the day of the wedding? Super happy. He is ecstatic. He's got exactly what he wants. He threw the party that he wanted. He's wearing what he wants. His wife looks the way he wants her to look. We do see this idea of machismo and oppression of women right here in this one sentence when we hear the creature of his torment. Who is the creature of his torment? It's Angela, right? So sort of a metaphor, like she is owned by him. She will live in his torment. She will live to whatever he puts her through. And at this point, that's sort of how she's feeling. Now, at the very bottom of the page, well, throughout this whole page, we talk about, the narrator tells us, like, nobody knew what Angela was up to. Like, nobody had any idea that Angela was not a virgin. This is not something that's crossing anyone's mind. Nobody knows what Beata's real motive is. They just know that this rich guy showed up and he got what he wanted. All right, so maybe they think that that's exactly what he wanted. Santiago. We all know that they claim Santiago is the one who took her virginity, right? Does anybody have any inkling that this is a thing? Looking back on it now, our narrator is talking to us, and he says, nor was it known what card Santiago Nassar was playing. I was with him all the time in the church and the festival, along with some other people. Who was Santiago with the night of the wedding into the early morning hours? Who was he with this whole time? And do they know that Santiago has slept with Angela? Is there any idea that Santiago ever slept with Angela? And would these guys know about it? Think about this. So for the day before the wedding, all during the wedding, Santiago's mission is like to figure out how much money was spent on this wedding, right? He is counting every chicken, every bottle of wine, everything that is there, and he's trying to figure it out. And he's like, listen, this wedding is just insane, right? And he mentions how much he thinks it is. He says, it's on page 42. He told Beata San Ramon that the wedding was up to costing some 9,000 pesos, which would be like $5,926, right? It would be a lot of money. And Beata just looks at him and he goes, yeah, that's how much it is right now, but it's going to be double by the time I'm done. What is that an example of? And in the end, Beata was right. It was just about double. So the day of the wedding, up to 5 hours before he was killed, Santiago is still doing this activity where he's trying to figure out how much this wedding was going to cost. And that is what he came up with, just about double that. So you're about $12,000, right? That's an extremely expensive wedding. So wedding happens, Everything is decorated. Let's talk about those decorations, right? There are flowers everywhere, everywhere, all over the place, right? We know, as the reader of this story, that the very next day after the wedding, we know two things are going to happen. One, that the bishop is supposed to come to town. We know that he actually never gets off the boat, but the bishop is coming. And two, we know that Santiago Nassar dies. What is ironic about the things that he says on the top of page 42 regarding the flowers? All right, so let's look at page 45. Page 45. So the wedding is over. Bayardo takes his wife, goes to Widower Zeus's house, tells everybody, keep on dancing, dance your lives away. It's going to be great. I'm going off with my wife now. So he goes off with his wife, and a few hours later, Pura Vicario is laying in her house, and she hears a knock at her door. And when she opens the door, what is there? When she first sees what's there, she thinks something about it. What does she think about it when she first sees it? Bayardo comes very humbled when he returns his bride. And he's very kind to the mother, and he passes his wife back to her and returns her. Nobody knows what Pura Vicario does during those next 2 hours, but until the brothers arrive home, when the brothers arrive home, we know that Angela is lying face down on the dining room couch, her face all bruised, and she's stopped crying finally. When Bayardo brought her, she was not bruised. Bayardo did not hurt her. Someone else did. Who hurt her? When the brothers get there, what do the brothers ask her, and how does she respond? Finally, I want you to look at this last sentence on page 47. This is my favorite part of the book. It says, she only took the time necessary to say the name. She looked for it in the shadows. She found it at first sight among the many, many easily confused names from this world and the other. And she nailed it to the wall with her well-aimed dart. Like a butterfly with no will, the sentence has always been written. Santiago Nassar, she said. How is Santiago Nassar like this butterfly that's being pinned? Explain that symbolism to me.